Awesome. Welcome to Lupus Live. Okay, let's get this music out of here. Come on. There we go. It's so good to be with you all today. I'm so happy to be here and speak with another amazing Lupus warrior. Right, let's see what's going on here. Hold on. Something is. Hold on 1 minute, guys, because something's going on with this echo. You might hear a little echo. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's going on today, this early afternoon. But we are not going to we are not going to keep okay, there we go. We are going to just go ahead with it. Okay. Well, welcome. So, this live. Let me bring Roxanne up so we can talk a little bit. Hold 1 minute. All right, hold on 1 minute, okay, guys? We will have to redo it on um, Instagram. So we'll do it on YouTube for now. Hi, Roxanne. How are you?
I'm good.
You see, I'm struggling today. I see. What is
Listen,
this?
I couldn't do it, so I at all. So you're doing
I'm
great.
like, what is going on? Well, I am so glad that you are here and this afternoon, and I'm so excited to speak to you today. I know that you have a story to tell, and I know that you are on time constraint. So I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. So I want to start right away. Let's go. Tell us a little bit
well,
about yourself. Tell us,
well,
when were you diagnosed, and then let us know your story.
well. First, thank you for having me. I've
My
seen
pleasure.
you do some amazing work for a long time, and I think you're the busiest lupus warrior I've seen yet. So, thank you for making the time to have me to share my
Absolutely.
story. So I was diagnosed in 2010. I was 27 years old. I was living in New York City working. My background's in fundraising and events.
Okay.
I was working for a large nonprofit, working long hours and, doing the New York City things that 20-year-olds are doing,
Right.
and actually had zero idea of how sick I was,
Mm,
which blows my mind every time I say that, but it's true. I didn't realize, I was pushing through fatigue, terrible joint pain,
right.
the butterfly rash, my hair was coming out.
Mm,
And I think it was a particularly stressful time.
sure.
But, there's so many factors that I now understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't until all of my lymph nodes swelled up that really my now husband boyfriend at the time said, listen, something is not right.
Right.
You need to go see a doctor. So I took his advice and I went to my GP, who told me that my vitamin D was incredibly low. But aside from that, I don't remember her really having any idea what was going on or giving me any direction.
Right.
So at that point, I'm very, very lucky. I have a doctor in my family. His name is Peter Barland. He's my great uncle. I went to see him, and he is a rheumatologist
Oh,
who
look at that.
actually helped develop the test for lupus. Was one of the doctors.
Wow. That's amazing.
I know. And I had no idea what lupus was. I just knew that it was easy to go see him. I didn't know what to do. I
Wow.
went to his I went to his house, and He looked at me, we talked. I mean, at that point, I couldn't even use my hands. The pain was so bad. The swelling was so bad. And he said to me, "You have lupus." And I'm thinking, if he's telling me, it's got to be true.
Right.
He knew.
Mm.
He knew. So at that point, he was mostly retired. He sent me to a doctor at NYU who wasn't totally convinced yet. He thought it was mixed connective tissue disease.
Of course.
But very quickly, he agreed and I started treatment. But I mean, I was so sick at that point. I had to quit working. It was a full-time job,
Yeah.
getting on the right treatment plan and sort of wrapping my mind around what was going on.
Right. Because you did a whole change of life.
Yes.
Even and with the pain and everything, it just probably threw you for such a loop.
Yes. And
But
the
how
fatigue.
amazing is it that your great uncle, I mean, he knew right off the front, because of course it presented itself to him.
Yes. And, my understanding now, there's a genetic component. There's an environmental component,
Sure.
the stress component. And I always say it's like a bathtub. These things are brewing for years. It's not that it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
And it's like all the water is being added to the bathtub and then something pushes that water right out. That's when your immune system just can't handle anymore.
And poof.
And poof, right?
Now,
sort of like
before you were diagnosed, now, hindsight is 2020.
Yes.
Do you remember times where you might have seen where it started? Because like you said, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. I was really a healthy kid, a healthy young adult. I don't really remember any symptoms in college, but I think after college, probably a few years before I was diagnosed, so like my mid-20s, I know for sure that I was photosensitive because so my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he actually lived in LA. So for maybe 6 months, we were, bi-coastal. And when I would visit him and we would go to the beach, I knew I didn't feel right.
Right.
Our minds are so powerful. They really do a good job protecting us. And now I look at pictures and I realize that I was not doing well.
Right.
I had food sensitivity, so I had a lot of digestive issues that I didn't recognize.
Right.
We know gut health is so important when it comes to lupus and autoimmune diseases. So there was something going on there. I didn't realize that I recently posted something about how I didn't realize something was wrong when I was walking home from Trader Joe's carrying the bags, but I had numbness and tingling and the fatigue was so overwhelming. But, if we don't realize what's happening, I think we're inclined to just push through.
Right.
So there were definitely signs.
Yeah. But, and also, when we're young, we're not looking to see if we're sick or like you said, you didn't know about lupus. So it's not like, what? I think I might have lupus. But it sure is interesting to look back and see, oh, wait a minute. Maybe that's when it manifested.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why I share a lot about the triggers, about the symptoms, because I think a lot of people come to Instagram if they're having, symptoms, but are not getting a clear diagnosis. And so I want to share my experience because there are a lot of people who do realize something serious is going on, but we know lupus is so hard to diagnose. And I feel so fortunate and blessed for my fairly quick diagnosis that whatever I can share to help people is really a driving force. And even though I was, the diagnosis takes many years. You know, we know on average 6, 8+ years to
Right.
diagnose, but also getting the treatments right, figuring out your triggers and the lifestyle factors for me took years. I mean, I know I was diagnosed quickly
Hmm.
and I'm so grateful for that,
Yeah.
but it still takes a really long time
Right. To get the right
to
cocktail.
to get on the upswing and sort of like stay
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I
It's,
agree with
it's a
you.
bumpy road. It's a bumpy road
Yeah. All around. All around. I
all
mean,
around.
you can get diagnosed so quickly, and then by the time you're diagnosed, your body starts to change. So the treatments are going to change. So it's
Exactly.
so crazy all around. All
Yes.
around.
Yes. We
So
know
now,
lupus is
so now,
definitely.
say it one more time.
No, we know that, lupus is a really difficult disease.
Yeah. 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 It's no like beating around the bush with that
Right.
at all.
Right.
So now you're diagnosed with lupus. You begin treatment, and then you found something that really helped you along the way. You want to talk a little bit about RL wellness and what you do with
Yeah.
yoga and holistic nutrition and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I always want to be honest about my experience with lupus, all the lupus warriors that I've met who are friends now or, who I work with, and just be honest about the difficulties. But I always like to say, what are you going to do about it? Right. So for me, once I got sick, I was really lucky. Somebody recommended a meditation teacher in New York City who was giving talks. And I was open to trying literally anything. And I had taken yoga, I was really active. But I thought, okay, if there is a practice that helps with stress and anxiety, I am going to try it. I'm willing to do anything. And I was really sick, but I somehow managed. I was so motivated to get there. No matter how sick I was, I made it. I planned. I probably did nothing that day. And I made it out to this woman, Gabby Bernstein's live talks. She's very well known now. At the time, you know, she wasn't she wasn't so well known, but she was
Right.
gaining popularity as a meditation teacher who taught these practices that helped her manage stress and anxiety. And so I started learning how to meditate. And at the time, I just knew I was giving my thinking mind a break. I knew I was feeling better. I didn't know why yet. So
Mm.
I kept doing it. And then a few years later, after my husband and I got married, we ended up moving down to the DC area, and I was ready to work part time. And I ended up getting this great part time job at a nonprofit wellness center.
Wow.
I was the development director. They needed somebody to fundraise and let the community know this wasn't just your typical yoga studio. This is a nonprofit.
Hmm.
So I was good at that. And they were great at teaching the science behind yoga, meditation, breath work.
Right.
The founder's a neuroscientist. She had her own healing journey. And I just basically threw myself into every class, every workshop. And at some point, it must have been 2014. So 4 years after I was diagnosed, she said, I think you should take our yoga teacher training. And she knew I had lupus. She knew,
Right.
I really had to pace myself.
Hmm.
Work gave me back my identity.
Sure.
That is real. If there's anything I grieve still, it's the loss of the career I thought I'd have.
Mm. Wow.
So, yeah,
I think a
yeah,
lot of people struggle with that as well because we definitely identify mostly with our jobs. We've gone to school. We've been looking
yeah,
to do this job thing since we were what, 14, 15 years old.
right,
Wow.
right,
So that's a
right.
powerful statement.
Yeah, and I was working for at my first fundraising job was at Big Brothers Big Sisters of New York City, so it was one of the biggest. I was just so proud to work there
Hmm.
and to do that work. And so I thought, okay, I can't do, 14 of major events a year, but I've been presented this opportunity. I'm going to say yes to this job and yes to this yoga teacher training. I think I was at a point where I was just saying yes to anything and everything. And I'm very good at saying no. I'm one
Right.
of those people.
But for some reason, yes was just flowing.
Yes, exactly. I felt like, I had to be open to trying new things to keep moving forward in my life. So I took the yoga teacher training. I became a yoga teacher there. And, I would teach when I felt well. And there were years where I couldn't teach as much. There were years I was pregnant. There was a year I had a miscarriage. So I've been teaching for 10 years, but I haven't been consistent, every single month of the
Right.
year. But it was always something that I learned the science behind the practices. I learned why in those early years of meditating, I felt better. When we learn how to lower our cortisol levels, which are our stress hormones, our nervous system starts to calm down. And from there, inflammation lowers. And we know lupus is an inflammatory disease. So I thought, okay, this is an easy way to understand it. I was never great in science, but I thought, I get it and I feel it. And unfortunately, where I worked closed after the pandemic, but I've continued to teach remotely. And then when my youngest child went to kindergarten this year, I thought, okay, maybe now's the time to get involved with our community. And I met some great lupus warriors who were sharing in a really upbeat and positive way.
Right.
And for a while, I was a little hesitant because I was seeing a lot of negativity around yoga and these practices. But I thought, you know what? I've lived it. I've taught it for 10 years. I've met so many people with, people were referring friends with lupus or other autoimmune diseases to me for years. And I thought, I'm going to go for this. If one person understands, it's really very experiential because I can talk about it all day. But when somebody takes the time to understand breath work and the science behind it and the physiology behind it, and I always say there are a few signs of your nervous system calming down. You feel a wave of relief, you yawn, your belly rumbles. I have students who start to cry because we hold on so tightly living with lupus. We are always holding on like this, for so many reasons. We have to pay so close attention to everything that we do. We're always planning ahead. We're always, I knew that I was always ruminating. I mean, I'm naturally very anxious. I'm an unlikely yoga teacher. But I had this amazing experience that over the years, changing. I literally feel like I have a different nervous system now.
Wow. But you know what? You said you made a statement and I put it on the screen. You said you were open to try new things to move forward in my life. Yes. And that is such a poignant statement because if we're not open to trying at least yoga, at least being mindful, and you've been on my page, I'm so into mindfulness, meditation, breath work, all of that is so important. As a former athlete, I definitely understand it. But like you said, you have to make yourself available to receive it.
I always say there needs to be a willingness.
Absolutely. You
have to be willing. And I think that should come easy to lupus warriors because it is so hard. And that's what that is why I was so motivated to share and to launch my virtual yoga and wellness studio for the chronic illness community, because I wanted to debunk what I was seeing. Right. I felt so bad for anybody who had been told that yoga would cure them. We know there's no cure right now, but if you're willing and open to trying these practices, and really this method I've cultivated for a decade.
Right.
And and these practices are short, simple, and effective.
I love that.
They're really quick, but you have to look, you have to be open to trying it, and you have to be consistent. You have to make the time, but it doesn't have to be this hour,
Right.
long routine. You can have the first 5 minutes of your day practicing breath work, and it sets the tone. And over time, you change how your mind and body handle stress. You start to understand the mind body connection,
Woo.
which I didn't have when I got sick. That was what I realized.
And you know what? That's so. We talked about this with Kimberly, who we talked to last night, about how important that mind body connection is. And I always say, it's not to say that lupus is in your mind, but lupus is in your mind, if you get what I'm saying.
Right.
That mind can really teach your body how to react to lupus.
Right. And when we're less stressed, we're going to have less symptoms.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, you done got me. I don't even know what to say, because you would think that people would understand that a little more, but none of us understood that, like you said, when we first were diagnosed.
No.
And sometimes it takes us a little while to get it. How do you suggest that people begin to change that mindset about yoga, about mindfulness, about just a whole approach to their body with lupus?
I think it takes changing your mind about how you feel about yourself first. Because lupus, like I said, it can take your identity. It can take what you're physically capable of. I mean, I was a competitive cheerleader, and then at 27, I couldn't make my bed. Like, it really plays games with your mind. And so you start to lose yourself and lose your identity and lose your self-love and confidence. Your self-esteem. So I think the first step is remembering who you are. Just reminding yourself you're the same person. You're not lupus. Lupus is my uncle. The best thing he ever told me is that lupus is going to be in the background one day. This is when I was super sick, and I made a reel about this because I felt so passionate about sharing that. Feeling like it's okay to do something loving for yourself, because that's what these practices are. And I know that can be hard. And if you're not there yet, my affirmation from day one, I must have heard it. I read a lot of books.
I love it.
I have a huge bookshelf. So I can't tell you where I got this affirmation, but I was on a spiritual journey, right? I was into the meditation. I was reading self-help books. I used this affirmation, thank you for my healing. And I repeated it over and over again. So I got into this sort of gratitude mindset, this loving kindness mindset that has helped me stick with these practices, because it's really easy to just want to give up and not want to put in the time. So I would say, you really have to love yourself, love who you are, no matter how sick you are. And I think that sort of leads you, being open, leads you to the next right thing. And for me, if somebody's open, I teach them very basic breath work. When you're anxious and stressed, you tend to hold your breath, or you tend to be a shallow breather.
Right.
And when you learn deep diaphragmatic breathing, that is what takes you out of fight or flight, which we are living in when you have lupus.
Right. All the time.
All the time. It takes you out of that fight or flight state into what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. That is rest and digest. That's when your, like I said, your cortisol levels go down, your nervous system calms down, your inflammation goes down because, and that's when your body feels safe and you can start to heal your mind and your body.
Absolutely. Look, you are preaching to the choir right now. I surely agree with every last word that you have said. And I think that when people are educated about their body, number one, and about how these different methods can help them cope with lupus,
Right.
it really, really makes a difference. And like you said, it's
Right.
not a cure.
No.
But I tell people all the time, I would eat nails if it would cure lupus.
Right.
So yoga or mindfulness, all of that, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because it's not nails, so I can at least try it and give it a
Right.
good hearty try.
Right. And what I teach, I always tell people, use these tools, find the practices that I'm teaching that work for you, that resonate with you, use them off the yoga mat in real life when you're stressed. Use them at the rheumatologist's office, when you're getting your blood work done, when you can't sleep because you're nervous or or you have joint pain. Like,
Right.
you learn how to let go of the constriction, the tightness, the pain, and everything slowly just starts, to ease. And, I also made sure that this studio that I launched was chronic illness friendly because even I had trouble signing up for classes, worrying that if I paid for a class and I had to cancel last minute, you lose that money. So I don't charge anyone, who can't, you can cancel anytime. You're
Right,
never
right. You
charged.
understand? Yeah, absolutely.
There's a stress less policy. If these prices, don't work for you, we'll figure it out. Like, I want to make it work. I know the financial burden we all live with.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I just wanted to tailor everything to make it work for all of us. When,
On a level playing field kind of
yeah,
thing.
because it can feel like trying to do things for ourselves in the real world for so many different reasons feels very difficult.
Right,
So
right.
I want to meet people where they are, and just
I love
give
it.
and bring our community together, in a
In a
really
space of
up,
mindfulness, yeah.
yes. And it has been very upbeat. People feel empowered, supported. We all know community is everything.
Yeah, look,
There's mindfulness and there's community.
right.
So for me, bringing both together has been amazing. But if you feel alone living with lupus, I
Mhm.
think that is one of the worst feelings. That keeps us
It
stuck.
is.
And
I agree with you. Just trying to navigate this whole ordeal of lupus alone is just too difficult.
yes,
It's too difficult. And when you can find spaces like yours that not only give you that community, but also bring in that mind body connection, it's amazing. Kimberly says that body feels safe enough to heal is a powerful statement. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I kept that up there for a while because I think that that's an important statement. Like, when we have lupus, we feel like our body is betraying us. So when you can take a mindful moment or a specific yoga stance or one breath and feel safe back in your body, that is powerful.
yeah, once you experience it one time,
That's all you need.
you can build on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that is what really changed everything for me. It's
Yeah.
knowing I can trust my body. That was like mind blowing.
That one.
I was like,
It's like, wow,
oh, yeah,
body, you're really sustaining me.
right. And learning that pain is a message our body is trying to tell us something, and we can't listen when we're stressed. It's like talking to my son when he's having a meltdown. He can't hear me.
Right, right, right.
I'm trying to explain. No, you have to wait until the meltdown's over.
Right.
When we're in agony, when we're in flames, when everything feels like it's going wrong, it's hard to trust your body.
Right.
But doing these practices, learning these practices, and starting to feel a little bit of a relief, and knowing that there are things you can do. And I'm not dogmatic about any of this.
Right.
I still take medication, but these practices have helped me get off many.
Right.
We gotta find this balance. So, there are people who won't take medication. There are people who won't try yoga. I think finding, like you said, balance in this life with lupus is what's most important. And having tools and being educated can really, I'm so grateful that I worked with this woman who had the background and the experience as a scientist. I can never thank her enough, because so much of what she taught me is what helped me get better.
Yeah.
So
I'm just so happy that you were so open, at that point in your journey, you were just so open to try anything.
And also, I remember, I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I remember thinking, if I can't be at every day of the training, or I don't teach, right away, I'm going to do the best I can. And I'm going to go in with the mindset that this is going to take me somewhere.
Exactly.
It's just like,
it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
Right. Everything is always step by step, inch by inch. Our parents used to tell us when we were having those meltdowns, take a deep breath. There's a reason behind it all. And you just explained it, how to, get those cortisol levels down. It's so important for us to just be open. And that's the whole thing about embracing the wellness beyond lupus. I just love to have people that can tell others how to do that. So I know I want to be respectful of your time, and I know you have somewhere else to go after this, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But could you give us 3 ways that lupus warriors might start to embrace the wellness within them? Because it's there. We gotta pull it out of us. Because I see that Kimberly said she still struggles. You know what I'm saying? She still struggles trusting her body. You know what I mean? So can you give us 3 ways to embrace that wellness within us beyond lupus?
Sure. So I think having an affirmation that really resonates with you, that you can use every single day. I always tell people it takes about 30 days to create a new habit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the suggestions I'm going to share, if you can commit to 30 days of being open to trying these new wellness tools, see what happens. And I think just see what happens.
Right.
And the affirmation that I used for a very long time, thank you for my healing. When we start to create new neural pathways when we start to focus on positivity and gratitude. And with lupus, we can get so caught up in the negative, in the victim, all the things that, can take us down. So we want to start to, our brain is a muscle. We want to, just like we lift weights to train our biceps, we want to train our brain. So I would say, find an affirmation that resonates. For me, thank you for my healing. I would wake up early. And that's another thing. If you can get up a little bit earlier and make time for yourself, I think this is my second recommendation. Before the noise of the day begins, and you can just have some peace and quiet to yourself. I go downstairs in my basement. I have a journal. I've done this for almost 15 years since I was diagnosed. So before my kids were born,
Right.
and this has not changed, I come first. And I say that unapologetically. I don't feel guilty about it. I need this time to myself in the morning. I go downstairs, I write down, an affirmation or something that is going to boost my mood, and also we boost our energy.
Sure.
Naturally, because I would say chronic fatigue is my most difficult symptom that I manage.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say make time for yourself a little bit earlier in the morning. If you like this idea of an affirmation, write it down. Let it, get into your psyche.
Yeah.
And try and practice breath work. So we could do it now.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. I always say this is experiential. The way we learn breath work in my classes, yogic breath, we want this deep diaphragmatic breathing. We want to oxygenate our cells. We want to shift our focus from the thinking mind to our breath. So this is mindfulness. We're paying attention to our breath. That is our focus. So we start off sitting up nice and tall. Also, my classes are very accessible. If you cannot get down on the ground, we can do chair yoga. So just like this, we're sitting up nice and tall, lengthening through the spine. Relax your shoulders. You can close your eyes to tune inwards. And we're practicing deep diaphragmatic breathing. So we breathe in through our nose. You want to start to feel your belly expand. And this may take a little bit of time. As you exhale out through your mouth, the belly contracts. You can think of it as breathing in, smelling your favorite flowers. Exhale, blow out the birthday candles. It's a little bit cheesy, but it works for kids.
I love it.
It works for adults because we can remember that. So we breathe in through our nose, long deep breath in, and a slow exhale out. And we can note if we have a thought. Okay, I had a thought. Note it. If you feel something like pain in your hands, okay, that's feeling. And you come back to the breath. So we're constantly having this conversation with the breath, but we're starting to understand our mind, our body, the physical sensations. And then just like I said, this breath work is powerful because it helps us ultimately lower inflammation, which is what we're always trying to do with lupus.
Exactly. And there's something as simple as those breaths that we just took. It actually relaxed me, from trying to get it on Instagram and all that nonsense that I was thinking about. But it kind of took that stress level down. And just that quick, you can feel a little bit better. Leslie says meditation and learning proper breathing truly calmed my mind. Right?
And the more people that are open about their experience, the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
Because I'm really trying to, the stigma attached to these practices,
I mean,
it hurts my heart.
It really is, because you know what? You get so many people saying off the wall type things. And I guess when you're in pain, you can only take things from where you are. So I know that yoga doesn't cure anything, but I know that it sure enough helps me relax. But I'm at a place where I can accept that. You know what I mean? Right. So most people are looking at yoga from a level of, I'm in pain. Yoga's not going to fix it.
Right.
And what do you say to people like that?
You got to take a class. You got to take a class because we pair the movement, the stretches with the breath work, and we can. So the chronic fatigue is what I have to manage the most, but I don't have any physical pain 99% of the time. Right. And so there are, I've really cultivated this method and these very specific stretches that help our joints, that And I teach this in class. I talk about the circulatory system, the nervous system,
Mm,
the lymphatic system. I get into detail, but I make it easy to understand, and you're feeling what I'm teaching.
right.
You know, I'm explaining why the circuit, like if you have poor circulation, as many of us do, or Raynaud's, or lymphatic congestion,
Hmm. Hmm.
the movement and the breath can really help. And also, I have a lot of other tips that I share in class that people do off the mat. Like I talk about dry brushing in class, and then my students will go and buy the dry brushes. So
Hmm.
it's honestly not as much about what we do in class as what you do those 23 other hours
Yeah.
out of class.
Yeah. And
And
it's
just building.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Absolutely. And like my mother used to say, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. Don't try to ingest it all at once in class and then
No.
get overwhelmed and then go
Right.
home and do nothing. You know?
Right. That's that's exactly right. I want people to understand that this is a simple practice. I teach a breathwork practice called the 1 minute breath. And
Mm.
if that's what you practice 30 days in a row, you'll see a difference after those 30 days.
Look,
And
now
it does
now you
not,
know I'm gonna come up with I'm gonna have a thing for June where we're gonna do a 1 minute breath every day.
yes,
Look,
yes.
yep, that's
Everybody has 1 minute. We all have
everybody.
1 minute.
Everybody, you are so right. And the simple things like that create a habit that leads to bigger and better things for you to do.
Exactly. That's
Absolutely.
exactly it.
I love it. I love it. It's like you're my
Yeah.
spirit animal.
Well, I was so honored and I'm so
Oh,
grateful because you are out there. You are literally on the ground. You are all over the place doing such amazing work. Like this has
oh, thank
been
you.
an honor to share
Thank
the
you.
time with you and
I love
share
it.
these practices that I'm so passionate about.
I love it because these coping mechanisms that you are developing are helpful. And I know sometimes it might feel like so many people don't want to deal with it and so many people don't want to do it, but it's going to continue to catch on. And especially since you're dealing with the chronic illness itself, it makes it so much easier to, I guess, digest
Yes.
for some people, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Sure.
Now, I know that you said that you have a class coming up. Tell us about the next class
Oh,
coming up.
yes. I'm teaching a free community class to celebrate
Awesome.
Lupus Awareness Month. It is tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Eastern, right?
Eastern Time. And we're going to do 30 minutes of breath work, gentle stretching, and then 15 to 30 minutes of, being together as a community, sharing, getting to know one another, celebrating our wins.
Awesome.
Lupus Awareness Month is about so much awareness, advocacy, empowerment, and community to me is everything. So that's what
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely. Now,
really was.
how can they sign up for that class? Do they need to go to your website or on Instagram?
If you go to my Instagram at RL Wellness DC, in my bio, there is a link to sign up.
Okay. I'm just typing this.
Or you can reach out to me directly and I will help you sign up.
Awesome. 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 So excited to see you tomorrow in class.
Yes, we'll continue. This will be a continuation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe we can work again with each other and help people learn their breath work and do some more mindfulness things. I love mindfulness. As a former athlete, when I got hurt, I had a coach that taught me how to meditate, and I was 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
So, you're at the right place at the right time to
Yeah.
teach you skills to keep you level-headed and balanced in your life for a lifetime.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. This is
Thank
great.
you, Kimberly. Yes, it's May 23rd, y'all. Oh, I said May 24th. What is today? The 22nd?
Yes.
I'm so excited that I was able to speak to you. I love everything that you're doing. I so agree with
Thank you.
everything that you have said tonight, today, actually.
Thank you.
And I look
Oh,
forward to, go ahead.
thank you. Oh, the other thing, you can find more about me at roxannelearner.com.
There we go. That's what I wanted. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the website on my other computer, but I couldn't see the thing. RoxanneLearner.com. There we go. I'm going to put that up so everybody can see. And I am so excited that I was able to speak to you today.
Me too.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your information, and I especially love your spirit and how
Oh, thank you.
mindful and how thoughtful you are as you deal with people with chronic illness.
Well, the feeling's mutual, so we'll talk soon.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. Thanks everyone for being here.
I know. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you so much, everyone who was able to tune in on YouTube. Look, you can watch it again on Instagram and Facebook in a few minutes after I uploaded. But I'm so glad that we were able to speak with Roxanne. She has such a great platform to help lupus warriors cope with lupus. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I will send out also a sheet of exactly what she was saying so that you can get an idea of what you need to do to be a little bit more mindful on your lupus journey. So thank you once again, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.